Hello and welcome to Up the Villa podcast and Transfer Hub. If you are new to our channel, subscribe, drop this video a like and get involved in the comment section down below. So on this episode, I'm going to be talking about how Aston Villa can unlock John McGinn. And for McGinn, I absolutely love McGinn. I love his character. I love just the way he is. I think he reminds me of a bit of like an old school footballer where they don't take themselves too seriously. But, you know, it's just nice to see in the game, isn't it? It's just always nice to see those characters. And I think John McGinn is one of them. I think footballers these days can take themselves a little bit too seriously. But yeah, so I just wanted to look at John McGinn, a little bit of his player profile, the journey that he's been on with Aston Villa, and also how I feel like he can improve and go up another level. I think when I'm thinking about McGinn, I'm thinking of a really wonderful footballer. He's got so many attributes that I like to see in a footballer. And I think when I do look back and think of McGinn, I think he can get to that next level. He can become a Champions League footballer and he can take Scotland into major tournaments. And I just think he's a breath of fresh air at times. But I think there's a side to John McGinn's game which can improve in a Villa shirt. And I think we hear it a lot, don't we? We hear the Scotland John McGinn and the Aston Villa John McGinn. And I think that's no disrespect to John McGinn. I think it's been what he's been told to do in an Aston Villa shirt compared to what he's been enabled to do in a Scotland shirt. But I think for us to get the best out of John McGinn, we need to merge the two together. And I think now we've brought in Boubacar Kamara and we look like we may be bringing in another 8 in this window. I feel like that will allow John McGinn to flourish in a Villa shirt, and we'll start to see prime John McGinn back at Aston Villa, which is what we all want to see. I think what's happened with John McGinn over the years is that he's been asked to do roles for Aston Villa that aren't necessarily playing to his key attributes, but he's having to do a job for Villa because we don't have anybody else in there that can do that job. And if we allow him more freedom, it means that we are more suspect at the back. So that's how I've seen John McGinn over the last few years. But we'll have a look at the numbers. We'll have a look at the heat maps and we'll see if we can back it up and see where we go with it, really. So let's share the screen now then. Right, here we go. So John McGinn in an Aston Villa shirt, 27 years of age now, left-footed, market value 24 million. I think if Aston Villa were to ever sell John McGinn at this moment in time, you'd be looking at more of a 45-50 to even start that conversation. It looks like West Ham was sniffing around him and Watkins, but I feel like Steven Gerrard has said we are building a team around John McGinn and Ollie Watkins, and those key players are absolutely going nowhere. If you look at his creative stat here, it's 72%, and his attacking is 63%, and his technique is 71%. His strengths are his ball controls, the butt roll. You know when John McGinn starts butt rolling that we are in for prime John McGinn in that game. And I always think that if John McGinn plays well, Aston Villa will play well. That's just how I feel about McGinn and the way he plays for Aston Villa. If he's on it, if he's butt rolling, if he's doing their defenders, if he's pulling their defenders one way, taking them another way, we know we're in for a great game. And I really like his passing at times. Sometimes it goes a little bit wayward, but like I've said earlier, I feel like at times he's trying too hard. But when he's on it, when he's playing them cross-field balls, it's brilliant. And his weaknesses, this is saying he doesn't have any. But if I was to say one of McGinn's weaknesses, I'd say sometimes he just tries to overforce it and overplay it. And when he starts doing that, he's not playing his natural game. And I think John McGinn is all about playing to his natural strengths. And I think when we're under the cosh a little bit and we start forcing it and we start to get a little bit ragged, I think that's when we don't see the best out of McGinn. So McGinn's SOFA score over the last 12 months was 7.27, which again, you guys know that I absolutely love my players to be hitting the high sevens. So consistently, John McGinn is doing that. We signed John McGinn from Hibernian for 2.7 million. I mean, have we ever made a better signing than that for the fee? Absolutely tremendous. And Steve Bruce picked that one out. Bloody hell. Right, so let's go back to the Championship then. So he was at a 7.17 in the Championship. His heat map was pretty much all over the place. I remember when we were in the Championship and we had McGinn, I do remember him getting forward, scoring goals. He was everywhere, wasn't he? And that's how I think the Villa fans fell in love with John McGinn. And when we got promoted to the Premier League, I would say this was the most attacking we've seen John McGinn in the Premier League. I think the way we set up in the first season was to use John McGinn's attributes and to get him further forward quickly. First game back in the Premier League against Spurs, he made that long run down the middle, split their defence and scored, didn't he? And that was the prime John McGinn. That was the John McGinn that we were saying he was going to do so well in the Premier League. But we struggled that season badly and we started to have to look backwards rather than forwards. So we'd sort of done a little bit more of a containing job on John McGinn as the season went on. So we ended up with a 6.95 rating. But if you look at this, he was getting forward regular. So let's go back to 2021. This was the lockdown season in the Premier League. And you can see on this heat map that his attacking intent was curtailed a little bit. So he was mainly playing in the middle of the park. And he got a 6.99 rating. So you can start to see that John McGinn is not sort of getting as far forward as what we would like. And let's go back to last season's John McGinn stats. So here we have it. This is John McGinn of last season. His rating was 7.29, but you can see that in the Gerrard system, in the three, he plays on the right-hand side of the three. He tucks in to cover Matty Cash. So you can see at the bottom side of the screen here, this is where he's tucking in, covering Matty Cash, and this is where he's getting further forward. But compare that to the first one in the Premier League. He's not in and around that box as much as what we would like. So you can see here an evolution of John McGinn in the Premier League, getting further forward, in and around the 18-yard box, inside the 18-yard box, curtailed a little bit in the lockdown season, and then last season, not so much, and implemented in a new system. So his stats from last season, 35 games, 3 goals, a goal frequency every 1,031 minutes, goals per game 0.09, shots per game 1.2, assists all season 4, touches per game 54.8. So let's go into Scotland's European qualifying campaign. He averaged a 7.09. This is the one where it was the home tournament for England. So this was the qualifying for that tournament. But as you can see, for Scotland, rarely ventures outside of his sort of halfway line here and playing further forward. And his stats for that qualifying campaign were played 10, started 9, scored 7 goals, goal frequency every 109 minutes, 2 assists, touches per game 38, accuracy per game 78%, and accuracy in his own half 95%. If we look at his stats for Aston Villa in the lockdown season, goals per game, he was at 1,110 minutes per game. And when we newly got promoted, his goal average per game was 772 minutes per game. For his international qualifying campaign for the 2021, it was 109 minutes per game. And for the World Cup, which they haven't qualified for, his goal contribution is every 215 minutes. So there's a stark contrast between his goal contributions for Scotland and his goal contributions for Aston Villa. Yes, the international qualifying campaigns are under less games, but you can still see that there's a comparable difference between the two. Let's now go to the qualifying campaign for the World Cup, which is going to be in Qatar, which we have not qualified for. He played 10 games, started 10 games, minutes per game 86, goals 4, goal scoring frequency is 215, assists 1, touches per game 44%, accuracy per game 80%, accuracy in his own half 83%, and his opposition half 72%. And this is for the qualifying campaign as well. So as you can see, his heat map for the qualifiers, which is for the England tournament, his heat map is pretty much all over, but more in an attacking purpose. So the heat map's pretty split there, but he's more in his own half than the opposition half compared to, I mean, let's go back to the heat maps for Aston Villa. Heavily on the left-hand side and heavily in the middle. Whereas we go into Scotland, it's more in his own attacking half. So let's go to John McGinn's last game, which is against Armenia. He had a standout game, 9.10, and his stats for that game were brilliant. Touches per game, 106. Accuracy per game, 86%. In his own half, 100%. Opposition half, 80%. So his stats for Scotland there in his last game are absolutely phenomenal. Yes, calibre of opposition is not great, but I think now we've brought in Boubacar Kamara and we've got to look and see who we do bring in this window. I feel like there will be now more of a licence for John McGinn to play his natural game and get further forward and see him in an attacking role. Yes, I'd love to still see him obviously getting back. You know, I feel like he's going to be more of a bit of a box-to-box. It's whether we play Boubacar Kamara as a 1 or a 2. If we play him as a 2, then I think you could say either Ramsey or McGinn are going to have licence to get up and down and have the freedom of the park in an attacking side of things. If we're talking about Boubacar Kamara as a 1, and then you've got a little sort of pivot in the middle, whether it's going to be Ramsey, someone else, McGinn, someone else, then I think that's going to be one to keep an eye on. But it's going to be interesting to see pre-season how things go because, yes, we've seen the 2 either side of Douglas Luiz covering the fullbacks, but does having a Boubacar Kamara who can drop in at the centre-backs as well, does that give us a little bit more licence? So that is going to be interesting to keep an eye on as well. But I just thought I'd just come on. I know we've got a subscriber in Darryl who always comments on John McGinn and his Villa form and his Scotland form. And I know he's watched him for Hibernian as well. So he's a big McGinn fan. He always comments on it. So I thought I'd do a little bit of an episode as well. And I just really wanted to say that for me, I think there's more to come from John McGinn. I think there's levels to John McGinn, and I think he's got another one to go to. So I just thought I'd just give some thoughts on the way he's done for Aston Villa, how I feel like he can improve, where I feel like we're going to see a better version of John McGinn as well. But Villa fans, let me know, are there more levels to John McGinn? So thank you for watching, and up the Villa.